Why are these people smiling? They're the famous men and women who brought you 1988. One wild and crazy year of conventional wisdom, glasnost and Gorby mania, and the infamous quote.
I think I smell victory in the air.
Join the NNTN News team, Stuart Pankin, Ann Bloom, Danny Breen, and Lucy Webb for a trip down memory lane with the masters of the universe.
Sounds like fun.
Not necessarily the year in review. Coming up next on HBO.
January 1, 1988. The president looks ahead.
If anything can go wrong, it will go wrong.
Half a dozen Reaganites were facing indictment. The Justice Department was in disarray. And still the great communicator avoided the press. Overseas, riots on the West Bank got even uglier and stupider. While in the U.S., indifferent voters weathered endless primaries. But not everyone was having fun in the summer of '88. Drought plagued the nation's farmlands. Medical debris tainted its beaches. Forest fires ravaged the national parks. And compounding all the pain and misery, George Bush picked Dan Quayle as his running mate. In Seoul, the Olympics were a shot in the arm for the makers of anabolic steroids. Yet everyone agreed security was excellent.
Not Necessarily the News presents a final wrap-up and review of all the news, events, and people that made '88 not so great. With NNTN's Bob Charles, Helen St. Thomas, Frosty Kimmelman, and Steve Casper. It's Not Necessarily the Year in Review. Now, here's Bob Charles.
Good evening. What a year it was. The elections, the Olympics, the return to space. We'll have more on those, plus what everyone agrees was the top story of 1988 after this.
Bet you think this is a sneaker ad.
Maybe an antiperspirant spot.
Guess again. Did you guess a jeans ad?
If you did, you'd be wrong.
By the way, do you have a headache yet?
If you don't, you will by the time you're finished watching this. Stop it all. For headaches.
Late in the year, the PLO finally recognized Israel's right to exist. How serious are they?
So, what are you having?
I don't know, ask Arafat.
Kanish. Good choice.
I still got heartburn from the brisket last night. I'm telling you right here. Oh, boy, what a pain.
In 1988, Hollywood screenwriters struck for 5 months, causing a major problem for the 3 television networks. How could they start this season without scripts? Well, someone came up with the idea of reshooting old scripts from shows that were popular years ago, like Mission Impossible. That one got made. But there were problems in remaking a few other television classics, like Route 66, a victim of poor planning. There is no Route 66 anymore. And in the pursuit of some quick bucks, one TV producer earned the all-time bad taste prize for reshooting old scripts from The Beulah Show, the one about a black maid and a white family she worked for. Sensitive to critics, the producers made Beulah white and the family black. Here's a clip.
More coffee, honey?
Just a half a cup, dear.
Why only a half a cup? Maybe it's because it's only got half a brain. Hot biscuits for everyone. Now don't be shy. Come on, honey, have one. They're not gonna eat you.
Only one episode was shot. It was subsequently burned. Meanwhile, President-elect George Bush attended the Milwaukee Beer Festival today, making sure to visit every booth before eventually boarding Air Force One for the long trip back home to Washington. Now this.
You know, I love to smoke cigarettes, and I love to eat cheese. So when Philip Morris purchased Kraft in a leverage buyout this year, well, I was the big winner. New Kraft 100s, the taste of smoked mozzarella and the rush of nicotine.
Liz has her passion, and Cher is uninhibited. But only one woman, only one, is unimpeachable. Unimpeachable from Benazir Bhutto, the prettiest woman in all of Pakistan.
Of course, we know that Dan Quayle had a busy year. The campaign took him all over the country. At one point, he visited Yellowstone Park, which was ravaged by fires. Nearly a third of the park's forest land was destroyed. Quayle toured the fire-stricken areas, even taking a break at one point to play a game of softball with members of his campaign staff. And there was a lot of jawboning this year about what was and wasn't a good political ad. But in the final analysis, what counts are results. Here's an ad for one of this year's winners.
Senate candidate Dick Farley.
I'm a family man. I believe in family values. I'm also a human being. But as a eunuch, I can guarantee voters that if elected, I will never bring disgrace upon my high office through some unseemly scandal in my private life.
Dick Farley. You know he won't, because he can't.
The biggest surprise of the Summer Olympics was the upset in synchronized swimming, where the Australian team won by default when no other country showed up. And a pair of trapped whales captured the hearts of millions when they became the subject of a multi-million-dollar rescue mission. To prevent future whale strandings, the members of the environmental group Greenpeace recently perfected a method of inflating whales with helium so they can be safely floated to freedom. Meanwhile, in a brazen attempt to slash Social Security payments, the Bush administration will require mandatory workouts for all recipients.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, ladies. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come.
Frosty?
After 8 years of being kept at arm's length, reporters were finally invited for one no-holds-barred, ask-me-anything press conference with the president. There was only one condition.
No answers.
This was the year that Don Regan got back at Nancy by revealing her slavish devotion to astrology in his book, For the Record. But later in the year, Nancy struck back, releasing these secret FBI videotapes of the former chief of staff.
So, you're the guy who has a contract on Sam Donaldson?
Certainly, I don't think he should be given a graceful exit.
Don't worry, it won't be. But first, you gotta lure him into a trap.
Why me? Why can't you get somebody else to do it?
Hey, you're the guy who knows him, not me.
It's a very difficult situation.
Difficult? That's what makes it fun.
On the other hand, we got to get rid of the guy.
Right. That's why I'm here. Okay. I'm gonna sneak up on the guy. I'm gonna push him out a window. It could look like an accident.
We tried it, didn't work.
Why not?
I couldn't bring myself to do it. I don't know whether it was fear or what it was, but there was a fence there.
Hey, windows ain't for everybody. Personally, I love windows.
We've got to come up with something else. We've got to be creative, but we got to get rid of the guy.
Look, my motto is keep it simple. All right. You tell this Donaldson guy that you're gonna spill the beans on Iran-Gate. He comes running over here like some dog in heat. You pull out your .45. You still got one from the Marines, don't you?
Oh, yes.
All right, good. So you pull out your rod, and you stick in his ear, and you say, sorry, you're through.
Sorry, you're through.
Yes, close enough. Then, when he's shaking in his shoes, looking at you, I sneak up behind him, and we play Slice the Salami. Relax. I'll clean up the mess. No charge.
Let's get going on this one.
Federal prosecutors are still studying those tapes. Now this.
Remember this? And this? And this? People thought George Bush was a wimp, and how did it make George feel?
Nervous.
That didn't help. So he asked Jim Baker to join the team. Jim put George in a truck, but that didn't work.
Down to your driveway.
So Jim asked George to show off his gun collection, but that backfired.
Well, I think we need to
regroup a little.
So Jim hired the country's top pharmacologists to develop these, and he gave them to George. Did they work?
Read my lips. No new taxes.
Wow! When the wimps of America saw that, they went wild. They wanted those pills. Now, Jim Baker's Wimp Away tablets are available to everybody. So effective, he uses them himself. Wimp Away. They worked for George. They'll work for you.
Sonny Bono is in.
Clint Eastwood is out.
Deborah Winger gives us the lowdown about her off-again, on-again Senator-elect Bob Kerrey of Nebraska.
And Gopher's in the House.
Cooter's in the Congress.
Goober's chairman of the National Security Council.
And Goofy's got his eyes on the Supreme Court. All on the next Politics Tonight.
When Hurricane Gilbert hit the Caribbean with 150-mile-an-hour winds, Steve Casper was there. When there was an earthquake in Armenia, Steve Casper was there. When there was rioting in South Korea, in the West Bank, in Burma, we sent Steve Casper. When nerve gas was being used in Iraq, we sent Steve Casper. And now, joining us from his semi-private room here in New York, correspondent Steve Casper. Steve, what put you in the hospital? War, a hurricane, a flood, or a combination of everything?
None of the above, Bob. Actually, it was an interview I did with Robin Givens' mother in New Jersey. That woman could kick.
No, seriously, Steve. What were some of the big stories that you covered this year?
Well, I covered a number of them, like Gorbachev and Glasnost were the big stories last year in the Soviet Union. With the lessening of travel restrictions, the Soviets had 3 surprise visitors in 1988.
President Ronald Reagan, industrialist Mickey Mouse, and Mr. Rogers.
It's a beautiful day in your neighborhood.
Rogers' catchy lyrics and unique piano stylings quickly won him a guest spot on the Ivan the Chipmunk Show.
I come from the United States of America, and I want to be your neighbor. Budishli Timoy Sased.
For now, Rogers is making his living as a street puppeteer. Whether or not he gets his own show will be up to the Soviet Central Committee.
In September, the Pope paid a surprise visit to South Africa, a country he was planning to boycott until bad weather forced his plane to land there.
South Africa displayed its normal courtesy and hospitality to a man of the Pope's status.
Oh. Last year, we saw the introduction of low-cholesterol eggs, fat-free ice cream, smokeless cigarettes, and alcohol-free wine. Now, only one person has actually tried all of these, and we'll hear what he has to say about them. But first, this.
She's a slob, married to a dumb slug.
Oh, Greg, no wonder your brain's rotting.
With a bunch of wise-ass kids living in a pigsty.
Hey, Superman. You left your cape in my chair. Who'd you expect to clean it up, Lois Lane?
Give him a break, Ma. Poor guy just found out his marriage is a life sentence with no possibility of parole.
Hop on a spell, will you, kid?
And that's why she and 75 million other slobs just like her watch Roseanne on Tuesday nights.
Hey, honey, it's time for Roseanne.
So get up and turn it on.
Oh.
I knew you'd always get stuck in something. God knows it hasn't been me for 10 years.
Roseanne, it's just like home.
Ivan Boesky, convicted stock manipulator. Michael Milken, indicted for illegal insider trading and corporate takeover rigging. Their company, Drexel Burnham Lambert, indicted for a veritable cesspool of corrupt practices, cheating, and fraud. Isn't that the kind of brokerage firm you want handling your account? We're Drexel Burnham Lambert. Let us cheat for you.
Oh, Susie, they're driving me crazy out there.
Oh, hiya, Marty.
What are you going to be this time?
Nazi transvestite.
Here, try this on. We used it for transvestite Satan worshippers last week.
You guys did transvestite Satan worshippers?
Well, why didn't they call me? I mean, I do a great transvestite Satan worshiper.
Well, I guess they thought you'd be a better Nazi.
I'm a good Nazi.
Here, Morty, I guess you're going to agree.
Oh, yes.
Oh, no. It's transvestite, not transsexual.
I don't know. I think they work.
Well, what about an armband? Would that be too much?
Too much?
That's great. You know, it kind of makes you want to just sneak over a border, you know what I mean?
Coming in.
Yeah. Oh, hey.
Okay.
I'd like to lie on a tub of sauerkraut. Let me try it out on you guys. Here we go. See, Kyle!
Hi!
What do you think? Is that good? You like that?
You know what? I was thinking a higher pitch.
Hey, you're going the wrong way! I told ya!
All right, there's a stop sign coming up. Watch out for the car on the right. All right, now, accelerate. Not too fast. Turn left. Now, turn right.
Okay. That is not bad. It's a little tentative, so why don't we just try it again?
Watch out for that tree! Stop! Go! Turn it around! And so the little princess returned to Peaceful Valley, where she lived happily ever after with her mommy and her daddy, and of course with Fluffball, the magic rabbit. Don't go away, kids, because we'll be right back after this.
Hundreds die in Guatemalan earthquake, 12 brutal gang murders reported in the immediate area tonight, and 5 more children are abducted by the schoolyard slasher. This has been the 8 o'clock news update. And now back to Tales for Tots.
Every 2.5 seconds, a serious auto accident happens somewhere in the United States. That's why auto insurance rates continue to go up, up, up. If your auto insurance rates went way up, could you afford it? Probably not. That's why you need to protect yourself with insurance from Farm State. With insurance, if your rates go up, we pay the difference.
So get insurance from Farm State.
Everyone praised George Bush's choice of Jim Baker as Secretary of State, even though Baker was the only one present at the announcement. There was a better turnout when Bush picked John Tower for Secretary of Defense. Tower, who is standing up, is rumored to be a rum-soaked, whoremongering crony of the big defense contractors. But looks are deceiving.
I was very surprised. He's a very different man from the intellectual midget that has been portrayed in much of the media.
Well, one guy who isn't controversial is Marlin Fitzwater, who turned down the job as weatherman on Good Morning America to stay on as Bush's press secretary. He even takes questions about Barbara Bush's age in stride.
Old enough to know better and too young to care.
And coming up, are budget cutbacks affecting the way our men fight? We'll find out when we come back. But now this.
First it was butter. It was clogging my arteries, so I switched to margarine. But then that wasn't so great either. I was supposed to use extra virgin cold-pressed safflower oil, but then they discovered that high-density lipoproteins or something were present even in unsaturated fats. I had to switch to a spray can of aerosol lecithin. Did you ever try that on a piece of toast? And now they're telling me that I have to be careful about lowering my good cholesterol level too much. Well, I've had enough. No more designer food products for me. It's back to basics.
Lard, real food for real people.
George M. Dallas, Hannibal Hamlin, Schuyler Colfax, Garrett A. Hobart, and Charles G. Dawes. Who were these men? The first explorers to reach the North Pole, the starting 5 of the original Boston Celtics, the combo that popularized the Lindy Hop? They were all at one time or another the Vice President of the United States. So what are you getting so upset about?
And now, some more headline stories from the past year. The summer of '88 was one of the hottest on record, with midday temperatures across the country soaring into the hundreds for weeks on end. Scientists debated whether or not this heat wave was the first onslaught of the notorious greenhouse effect or just another meteorological fluke. But everyone agreed the scorching heat and the merciless drought made the summer of '88, if not the longest, then certainly the hottest in memory. Meanwhile, a snake in the grass with its head stuck inside a beer can has been rejected by the Republican National Committee as that party's new symbol. No explanation is given. And now, this.
You could quote to him, oh, you said this. But he's still in a position where he can say, well, yes, but wait a minute, I also said this. And then you find that the second this kind of reduces or nullifies the first this.
And now this.
Later this week, an After Christmas special, Can I Return the Gift of the Magi? A contemporary classic.
Oh, Marilyn, I am so embarrassed. I'm so sorry that I'm late.
I'm a very punctual person.
I know you are. I'm not. I'm sorry. Could I get a drink over here, please? Martini up. Thank you. So, where did you meet him?
We were in a hotel room in New Orleans.
The Royal Orleans, the French Quarter? Oh, my God, you got caught. Did anyone see you?
No one recognized us. No one stopped us.
Boy, were you really lucky. Thank you. So where was Danny?
I don't hook up with Dan very often.
Well, no one would blame you for that. But what made you pick Gary Hart for an affair?
He's very good at it.
I know he has that reputation, but really, how was he in the sack?
A little premature.
He was with me, too.
My goodness.
Oh. Marilyn, I guess that slipped out. I'm sorry, Marilyn. I've been meaning to tell you. It's just that it's been hard because I want to keep singing.
I don't think there's a problem with that.
Are you sure, Marilyn? Because if there is, I will drop him like that. I mean, you and I, we are friends, and I sleep with lots of politicians.
This is the first one I've done.
Oh, sweetheart. You must have been really nervous.
Oh, no, not nervous. It was an opportunity. We looked at it as a true opportunity to be able to serve the country.
Well, I'm patriotic, but that's not why I'm sleeping with him. Do you think we can share him?
Absolutely.
Are you sure you won't get jealous?
No, that's silly.
All right, listen, Marilyn. Now that you've slept with Gary, I would love to fix you up with George Shultz.
Oh, boy.
Mikey Dukakis?
This portion of Not Necessarily the Year in Review is brought to you by Frozen Oat Bran Yogurt Muffins and new Frozen Oat Bran Yogurt Muffins with aspirin. They cure everything. And by Denture-Vice. Grips teeth like a vice. And new denture formula, Crest Tartar, for the discriminating denture wearer.
Eating right is important to me, and it's important to my whole family. So when the American Cancer Society released this comprehensive report on the relationship between diet and cancer, well, you better believe I took a long, hard look at it. But you know something? In over 1,000 pages of findings based on 46 separate studies of the health of literally millions of Americans, there was not one single piece of evidence that even suggested that eating marshmallows soaked in blue food coloring caused cancer. Well, when I read that, I realized it was time to stop taking chances with my family and start eating right.
Hey, Mom, what's for dinner?
It's right there.
All right.
Marshmallows soaked in blue food coloring. Shouldn't you be eating them right now?
This message brought to you by the American Marshmallow Bureau and the Society of Food Colorists.
1988 was a year of hard times for America's savings and loans. But a decision to change course has been made, And after a long dry spell, the nation's SNL industry is on the road to recovery.
Starch or no starch?
No starch. And can you be careful with the shirts? Last week you lost a button.
The Federal Savings and Laundry Insurance Corporation guarantees all deposits up to 100,000 shirts. The old evolution versus creationism controversy heated up again during a debate between those who claim we are descended from apes and those who claim we are not. Both sides are waiting to hear what the Pope has to say. In September, everybody's attention shifted to the Olympics in Seoul, including the entire NNTN news team. The proud lighting of the Olympic torch had us all in tears. And on the day of the closing ceremonies, we got together at a lovely outdoor cafe near the Olympic Stadium to reminisce about all the wonderful things we had seen.
Bicycle,
Cycling.
The gymnastics. God, we all rooted for those tough little Romanian kids.
Oh,
They're great.
how about our own Greg Louganis?
Yes.
Or Janet Evans.
Oh, all our kids performed great. You know, as did the Korean organizers, let's face it.
This had to be, with the exception of a few incidents.
Yeah, like the boxing,
Right, with the exception of the boxing. The most trouble-free Olympics in memory.
Well, again, the events went off like clockwork. That impressed me.
I was a little put off by the steroid scandal.
As was I.
But I really do think that that is an individual problem and not an organization.
You're right, Helen. You can't blame the Olympic Organizing Committee for the loose ethics of a few misguided individuals.
Did any of you get to see the equestrian events? Oh, they were wonderful. It's a shame that the horses couldn't receive medals.
Yeah, baseball came to the Olympics this year.
And tennis? Wasn't it something to see Chris Evert representing her country?
Sir, Mr. Vice President, things are about to explode in South Africa. People are being murdered. What are you gonna do?
We'll talk about that tomorrow. The Baker and Francis, yeah, they're gonna... With George Bush, you get experience. We will bring you the future of America.
Don't let them tell you I'm no Texan. Take a look at that.
I just figured out how to get rid of Danny Boy. We'll sucker them into making him the vice president.
In 1988, Mother Nature taught us all some very painful lessons. We learned that if we continue to burn fluorocarbons in the atmosphere, the ozone layer could disappear, and the whole Earth could look like this someday. It's called the greenhouse effect. Some call it the White House effect. And it wasn't the only bad news on the environmental front.
Speaking of the ozone, scientists last year sent up numerous test rockets to the edge of the atmosphere where the ozone layer sits. Rocket after rocket, test after test, new information kept coming back telling them the bad news. Finally, this photo, a large hole in the ozone, directly above the test site, was graphic proof that much more had to be done. And TV game show host Bob Barker led a massive protest of the fur industry in New York's Garment District recently. Later, over a broiled condor, Barker told me he really doesn't care about animals, but it's good publicity. And finally, those two whales that made it out to sea a few months ago were spotted recently. Once again, though, they were off course and confused, beaching themselves at the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. The Soviet icebreaker is on its way.
From historic Walden Pond near Boston, Massachusetts, I'm Helen St. Thomas.
Al Gore. Gary Hart.
Are smiling.
And Mike Dukakis. Tonight on the all-new Go On Show.
Airbags, they can save your life. But airbags, if they're even available, cost thousands of dollars to install. Until now. Now there's Lifesaver, the cheap, easy-to-use passive restraint system that needs no installation. Watch as Lifesaver saves this man's life. When an accident occurs, there's no time to think. So the makers of Lifesaver made it simple as blowing up a balloon. You'll thank us. And for that, we thank you. Lifesaver. Available at most fine toy stores.
No one expected an America's Cup defense in 1988. No one, that is, except for the New Zealanders, who discovered a glitch in the rule book, which eventually threw the race wide open to all comers. Crews came from around the world, in boats of every size and description. There was high-tech, low-tech, and no-tech. And at times, the competition got ugly. In the end, there were many losers, but only one winner. The International Association of Catamaran Manufacturers. As for the rules governing the race, well, it's back to the drawing board. Looking ahead, we're all going to miss what's come to be known as the gaze. That look of adoring devotion Nancy reserves for the president. Fortunately, the Bush team is training a replacement. And now this.
It's back with a new star and a new format. Trapped in the Waldorf Towers in a suite costing $1,800 a day, she was a woman in prison. Fridays on the Fox Broadcasting Network.
The presidential campaign of 1988, besides being one of the dirtiest on record, also started with the largest field in memory. For a while, it seemed like everybody was running. But after a number of early sprints in the stampede of Super Tuesday, the field was whittled down to the four strongest horses: Dukakis, Bush, Jackson, and Gore, with Dukakis holding a comfortable lead coming out of the stretch. Approaching the far turn, Bush kicked up some mud and regained the lead as he and Dukakis broke off from the back. Into the straightaway, it was Bush. Bush by 2 lengths, Bush by 3 lengths, and pulling away. And at the wire, it was Bush by 4.5 lengths. George Bush, with jockey Manuel Noriega on board, paid $440, $330, and $280. Dukakis, who was riderless, went off at $1,000,000 to 1. He'll be put out to stud or shot. Now, with a look at the year in science and technology, here's Helen St. Thomas.
1988 will probably be remembered as the year consumer advocate Ralph Nader charged that almost all the produce we eat is dangerously tainted with pesticides, herbicides, and other poisonous chemicals. Well, not true, say the growers, who insist they only use chemicals that are totally safe. In a related story, it's been confirmed that Top Shelf commercial spokesperson Dick Cavett has indeed grown a 3rd arm. Top Shelf, which manufactures those TV dinners that don't need to be frozen, says it sympathizes with Mr. Cavett, but for obvious reasons, he'll have to be dropped from the campaign. Those totally automated assembly plants that were being ballyhooed in the early 80s are already a thing of the past. More and more, they're being replaced by Korean auto workers. The Koreans apparently work faster and cost less. And 1988 was the year that proved Einstein's theory of relativity to be correct, as U.S. astronauts, after traveling faster than the speed of light, returned from a 10-year journey that began in 1998, 10 years from now. Already, Einstein's theory is the hot topic in salon society. I'll have more, including that bizarre accident that killed dinosaur designer Helmut Kuntz and Hugh Hefner's use of computer imaging to nuderize thousands of classic films for the Playboy Channel. But now this.
Mike, could you hand me the hairspray?
Honey, I thought we agreed not to use any more aerosol sprays. You know what they do to the ozone layer.
Oh, it's okay, Mike. We've got Ozone.
If you enjoy the convenience of aerosol sprays but are worried about what they do to our precious ozone layer, you need Ozone, 100% pure ozone gas in a spray dispenser.
With Ozone, I can use all the household sprays I want and still not destroy the ozone layer.
So that means no more hazardous solar radiation and no more global warming.
We're not part of the problem anymore, sweetie. We're part of the solution.
Ozone, every time you spray.
Hey, I think it's getting cooler already.
Just recently, the courts decided that Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos must stand trial for concealing their purchase of 5 buildings in Manhattan for $100 million. Authorities became suspicious when it was discovered that each of the 5 buildings contained a shoe store. And in medical news, more progress was made in replacement organs this year when doctors at Johns Hopkins announced they had developed an artificial ear. First models were a bit bumpy. And coming up, Egypt's famous Sphinx is sold and heads to Long Beach, California to join the Queen Mary and Spruce Goose. Frosty?
An ever-increasing number of panhandlers clogging New York City streets prompted the Koch administration last year to levy a fine of $10 for panhandling. To avoid a court appearance, most panhandlers pay in cash. So far, it's been a windfall for the city, which has already collected over $34 million. And after years of exhaustive scientific testing, it was finally revealed that the Shroud of Turin was not old enough to be the burial cloth of Jesus Christ and could only be placed as far back as the 13th century.
Mr. President, are you going to Disneyland?
Been there for several years.
Now that the mystery surrounding the Shroud of Turin has been cleared up, the attention of the world scientific community has turned to the Shroud of Elvis. Is it actually the burial cloth of Elvis Presley, or just the shroud of some Elvis impersonator? To find out, tiny samples were cut from the shroud and sent to 3 independent laboratories. So far, carbon dating tests from 2 of the labs indicate the shroud was made in New Jersey in 1987. But still, a great mystery remains. Who made it? How did they make it? And why?
Coming up, the coup du jour in Haiti.
President Reagan's former Deputy Chief of Staff, Michael Deaver.
Well, I have no question in my mind about violating the law. I should have been more careful.
Next week on America's Most Wanted.
One of the big movie hits of this past year was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, a delightful film which had a very strong influence on the Reagan administration, the first administration to mix cartoon characters with live action. Now, this Roger Rabbit influence went all the way to the top.
I'm Roger Rabbit.
Meanwhile, George Bush, in his successful campaign, added one of the California raisins to his brain trust. The other 3 worked for Dukakis. And later, we'll pay a visit to Surgeon General Koop, who's a regular on the Saturday morning Mr. Potato Head show.
I'll accept it now, sir.
Over my dead body.
Every former president gets a library to house his important presidential papers, and President Reagan is no exception. Here, officials of the administration are gathered for the dedication of the Reagan Library.
What a beautiful model.
Well, that's not a model, that's the library.
Yeah,
it's all here, the whole 8 years.
I remember this speech.
Here's his position paper on the Contras.
Yeah, and here's what he said at Reykjavik.
Hey, here's a speech to Gorbachev, and the one he gave at the UN.
Yeah, it really takes you back.
Meanwhile, many people are asking where Dan Quayle will serve in the Bush White House.
We'll stay in the kitchen.
And the grand old man of American music, Irving Berlin, turned 100 years young in 1988. Unfortunately, despite the efforts of his doctors, he was unable to attend a gala celebration in his honor at Carnegie Hall. Now this.
The Ford Fantasy. The power and spirit of a wild stallion. The speed and beauty of a herd of African gazelles.
Who are you kidding? What you need is a car that's solid enough to get you through your miserable commute while giving you half a chance against the next drunk driver that hits you. The reality. Get serious.
Come on, move it!
The reality. Get serious.
One of the year's happiest stories was the national elections in Chile. Here with the details is NNTN's Frosty Kimmelman in Santiago. Frosty, what's the good word?
Well, Helen, as you know, the recent elections here confirmed that a substantial majority is opposed to the continued dictatorship of General Augusto Pinochet.
And what does that mean?
Well, Helen, it means that there'll be another election in 1992 to find out if the people would like to vote for someone other than Pinochet.
Yes, and then what?
Well, if they vote yes, another election will be held in 1996 to see if the people want to support Pinochet's hand-picked successor.
And if they vote no?
Well, then there'll be another election in the year 2000 to see if the people want to vote for someone else, etc., etc.
Everyone must be very happy.
Oh, yes, Helen. After 17 years of a brutal military dictatorship, it's great to see democracy return to Chile.
Thank you, Frosty, for that insightful report. Perhaps a look back at 1988 wouldn't be complete without a look back at 1968, the year everyone was talking about in 1988. Here's Bob Charles in 1968.
This is Bob Charles in 1968. Let's find out what people back here think. Excuse me, do you mind if I ask you a few questions?
No.
Whatever. Good. If I told you that Ronald Reagan would be president of the United States, that Sonny Bono would be mayor of Palm Springs, or that Jerry Rubin would become a professional party giver, what would you say?
Oh, well, I'd say you were nuts, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. Ronald Reagan.
The president of what?
Thank you so... Oh. Far out, man, and groovy. In 1968, this is Bob Charles throwing it back to you.
And now this.
Your budget director is quietly putting out the word that your entire budget is a sham. You want it. Your chief of staff is secretly letting it be known that the major blunders of your administration were made against his advice. You need it. Your wife is anonymously planting stories in the press about who's coming and who's going in your inner circle. You've got to have it. What is it? Dutch tape. The tape that's so strong, you bet your life on it.
Later tonight, Marcia Louie, Ted Dewey, and Phil Huey interview astronomer Carl Sagan.
Dr.
Sagan.
You've often
said that the
universe is
filled with
billions
and billions
and billions
and billions
of stars.
Just how
it is.
Billions
and billions
and billions
and billions.
That's all on the next Huey, Dewey, and Louie report. Consult your watch for the correct time in your area.
One of the most unusual stories of 1988 actually had its beginnings back in the year 1552 in France. It was there that Nostradamus first wrote his prophecies of centuries to come. In one, he predicted that a cataclysmic earthquake would hit Southern California. Now here's a clip from the film The Man Who Saw Tomorrow, starring the late Orson Welles.
And in the 8th year of the 8th decade of the 20th century, there shall occur in the Angel City a catastrophe of such proportions that not a soul will survive.
Well, he was wrong about that one. Unless he was talking about the writer's strike. Anyway, here's more of Nostradamus on the year 1988. Some of it's almost eerie.
In a great coastal city of the new empire, in a place where men judge other men, a beautiful and influential woman, a former queen, will be accused of using her great power to help the man she loves. She will even be charged with shoplifting. And yet another seltzer will be introduced. And in sports, the Mets will win the World Series.
So, all in all, Nostradamus betted about 500. I'm Steve Casper.
Yes, I'm vice president. And yes, I'm proud to have been vice president. And
durable,
yes,
rugged, yet attractive. Traditional toughness combined with outstanding performance. Yes, that's what you get from this authentic lightweight jacket and cashmere sweater combination from LL Bean. LL Bean, comfortable, authentic.
Let's take a look ahead to the future of Ron and Nancy Reagan. What lies in store for America's first couple now that the ball is over? Well, Ron's already taped a couple of TV specials. Here he is trading ad-libs with Bob Hope. And a public service announcement has begun to air around the country, filmed by Mr. Reagan on behalf of the Consumer Protection Agency. It's a warning about the confusing proliferation of new laundry products with helpful advice for the consumer.
This is Ronald Reagan, President of the United States of America. There are over 65 laundry additives. Confusing, isn't it? If you use several, it's expensive. But you can save money by using only Boratine with your detergent. Use Boratine. You won't need a bleach, a softener, a booster, or any other additives. All you need is your detergent and Borateam.
Misleading? You be the judge. And finally, 1988 saw the Air Force introduce the stealth fighter, the stealth bomber, and the stealth bomber with raisins.
And now, a final word on 1988. And it's one of optimism. Because last year, we signed an agreement with the Soviet Union to begin to destroy our nuclear weapons. Already dozens of SS-20s, SS-18s, Cruise, Minuteman, and Pershing missiles have been demolished, reversing a decades-old trend of military buildup going back to the end of World War II. Experts estimate that at the rate of 3 nuclear weapons destroyed every week, the nuclear arsenals of both nations will be empty by the year 2023. Finally, some good news on the road to Armageddon. On that optimistic note, from Bob Charles,
Helen St. Thomas,
Frosty Kimmelman,
And Steve Casper.
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year, everybody.
This portion of Not Necessarily the Year in Review has been brought to you by Arafat Away. Lose fat the Arafat way with Arafat Away.
We are one community, and that by working together to create opportunity and a good life for all of us are enriched and ennobled. Your Eminence, through your work and that of the Catholic Charities, you have placed human hands and human hearts at the service of God and your fellow human beings. Government cannot provide love. But we can and we must use it to help provide the housing, the shelter, and the medical research that charity can't provide alone. In so doing, we advance not the cause of Republicans or Democrats. We advance the cause of America. We advance the cause that Al Smith fought so fiercely for, so warmly, and with such great class and great integrity. We advance the cause that binds us together here tonight. Thank you for having me. Thank you for this honor. Thank you for your welcome. And God bless you all.
Coming up next, there's plenty of action both on and off the slopes as the World Cup hopefuls head to Squaw Valley to get their buns in motion in Hot Dog, the movie, next on HBO.
Next time on First and 10, special guest Joe Namath takes us behind the scenes for the inside story when the Bulls go for the championship.
Well, I'm not making predictions this year. I'm making a show.
Everyone's getting ready. I can't lose. The fans are going wild, and the Bulls are set to go.
Nobody wants this game more than me. Nobody!
Nobody wants this game
more than me. Me! Nobody!
Nobody. Don't miss the season finale of First and 10. Tomorrow on HBO.
In the battle against crime, only one thing stands between us and them. Dragnet. 2 cops.
Just the facts, man.
Says who, flathead?
2 styles.
Your new partner. Not looking like that, you aren't, mister.
1 mission.
Thank God it's Friday!
Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks, a pair of unbeatable comics in the hilarious spoof Dragnet.
My hat was in that car.
Sunday on HBO.
The best movies.
Your participation in HBO's Comic Relief has helped thousands of America's homeless. We look forward to your involvement again.
Comic Relief on HBO? We're talking real serious comedy here.